want God to make a difference. God is saying, well, act like you believe it first. God, I need you to make a change in my life. Well, God, act like you're going to believe it's going to happen. God, I believe that you could do all things. Then get up in the morning and act like you're going to do all things. God, I believe you're more than a conqueror. Well, then go and face your situation expecting me to come through for you. God, I believe that you could move mountains. Well, start climbing at least one of them. God, I believe that you could protect my family without acting like you believe what I said. I'm your father. I'm in control of everything. Why am I consulted last? Why don't I have the time to hear when I'm speaking? They didn't do that, folks. In the midst of all the pressure they were going through, they got into a constant prayer while they were working. How often do you pray? Does it have to be traumatic where you're just out of your mind and you pray? Or is it praying without ceasing? What is the pattern of your prayer life? What kind of context do you pray in? Because what I mean by that is, are you praying, God, I expect you to fix this, or God, thank you so much for listening to me? Is there any confidence in our prayer? God, that's what prayer starts off with. Our Father, which is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread is down the road. But at the very top, he's saying, I consult God. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in heaven as it is on earth. Then give us this day. So when I'm asking you for bread, is attached to you carrying out your will and your purpose. They prayed, folks. What is your prayer life like in the midst of COVID? Watch this carefully. Go down to verse 11. They prayed. In spite of it, they prayed. Oh, here's the second thing in spite of. They set up guard because they stopped working. Watch this carefully. In verse 9. And because of them, we set up guard against them day and night. I'm not, please don't get me twisted with this. I'm not saying for a minute that you don't have to be conscious and careful with COVID or this new variant or what it does when you go to work or your kids go to school. They set up guard. We got stuff on our face. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we got to stay purposeful while we stay smart. Watch it carefully. They set up guard while they were praying. They didn't just set up guard and say, God got this. They prayed and they set up guard. That's how they stayed purposeful. What are they saying from doctors, not social media? What are they saying from scientists, not some person trying to get hits on social media and build their system so they could be popular and make money? What are they saying from people who are doing this research and trying to guide us? What are they saying? We set up guard and we pray. Why? We got to rebuild this wall. It's tearing down our communities. It's tearing down our marriages. There's people still out there getting on drugs. There's still people talking about divorce. There's still people out there struggling as single parents. There's still people out there that have lost loved ones. There's still people that are broken and hurting. There's still walls coming down and anxiety and fear and stress. We just going to let this go on? There's still people committing suicide because they're alone for long periods of time, locked in their apartments and their homes. No one calls or talks to them because they're scared of this virus. What do we do in the midst of all of this? Do we just keep hiding, or do we stay purposeful? Walls are coming down. And that's why, despite the opposition, look at verse 11. Despite the opposition, they believed in God's power. Look at verse 11. You think Satan's going to go? Don't forget, Satan reacts. God stays purposeful. So guess what Satan does? He reacts. Oh, y'all think you're going to have guards out there, have a prayer meeting going on? Y'all think that's going to do something to me? So Satan gets more angry. Look at verse 11. Our enemy said, they will not know or see until we come among them. Kill them. The word kill means we're going to slaughter them, cut them up in pieces. We're going to destroy them. We're going to make them so afraid of us by the way we destroy them. And put a stop to the work. Put a stop to it. Put a stop to it. Think Satan wants us meeting for church? Think Satan wants the men's ministry to meet yesterday? You think Satan wants to see the community outreach stuff, feeding families, taking care of drug addicts? You think Satan wants Alan Butte to do what he's doing? Do you think Satan wants the building to keep being built in Africa while we are struggling? You think Satan wants to see what we're doing in the Caribbean? You think Satan is happy with that? You think Satan is happy with the counseling ministry doing what they're doing? You think Satan is happy with the children's ministry, the men's ministry, the women's ministry, trying to doing different things? We want none of this stuff. We got to stop the work. We got to close these churches down. This stuff is in the Bible we're dealing with. We act like God went to sleep in the midst of all of this. We're going to shut this down. They're going to prayer meetings and talking in prayer meetings. They're going to put up guards thinking that they could stop us. No. We're going to get this thing worse. We're going to bring out another virus. We're going to scare them some more. Because they can't see what the enemy is doing. This is an unseen enemy. They can't see it. They're telling them. They said the Jews who lived near them came and told us 10 times. They will come up against us. They got a secret plan going on. They have meetings. I just read you the meeting in verse 2. Did you see a Jew involved in the meeting? No. You think they're going to be happy? Later on, they say, okay, this guy Nehemiah keeps rising up. We're going to go after Nehemiah in chapter 7. Don't you think they would? Don't you think Satan would love for me to get the virus? So he could say, look at that preacher. Talking crazy, I got him. Don't you think I'm aware of that? You think he'd love to tear my family into bits and pieces? Not too long ago, when Nehemiah is standing up leading, they go after Nehemiah. This is a war. We call it a virus. I call it a war. Look at this. They're going to play, he uses the word enemy here, meaning we're distressed. We're in anguish. And these people are coming up against us. Could you imagine you are a sheep herder and 4 powerful nations are coming up against you with all the military hardware they could find? 4 nations against you as a sheep herder. Let me put it this way. Maybe it'll break it down a little more for you. Okay? You are at the gas station. And you have about 25 people. Machine guns, pistols, machetes, daggers, high-capacity rifles, all coming at you. And what you have in your hand is a car key. Would you still pray? Would you run when you know what God is saying you do? They're just like you. They were afraid. They were afraid. You can't see this virus. You don't even know when it's going to hit you. There's a reason to be afraid. I get it. I understand it. I got fussed at for going to Africa. I get it. I'm here by the grace of God. Because understand what he's saying here. With everything against them. Look at verse 13. Then I stationed. Who stationed? Nehemiah. Nehemiah said, oh, no. What else carefully? Look at verse 14. When I saw their what? Fear. They were trembling. They were intimidated. They were afraid. Verse 14. Do not be afraid of them. Do not tremble. Do not act like God, this God you've been praying to, believing in, trusting is gone. He's still in control. He's still powerful. He's still able to do exceedingly abundantly all you can ever ask or think. This God is able. You're more than a conqueror. I can do all things through Christ. Them verses still work. You can't be so afraid that you stop doing the work of God. Can't be so afraid that he shuts you down. Can't. He says, the leadership stood up. Verse 13, then I stationed men. Not we stationed men. Verse 9 says we. Verse 13 says I. Put some in parts. I stationed the people and their families and their swords and their spears. When I saw they were afraid, I rose up and spoke to the nobles, the officials. I went to the leadership first. I didn't go to the people first. I rose up to the nobles and the rest of the people. Do not be afraid. Here's the key word. Remember. Remember. Remember when we weren't sure we were going to finish this building. Remember when they stole the seats. Remember. Remember there was nobody here when we bought this land. Remember. Remember God's history. Before you look at the present situation and forget that God is purposeful. Remember when you were broke. Remember when you were destitute. Remember when you were hurting. Remember when you didn't know how you're going to pay your bills. Remember when you weren't sure you get up off the operating table. Remember when you weren't sure if your kid's going to make it or not. Remember when you weren't sure that pregnancy will come through. Remember when you weren't sure whether or not you will live or die. Who was there? Remember the Red Sea. Remember how we got 900 miles down the road and built these homes and are still building this wall. Remember. Just meditate on that. I love David says, I killed a lion. I killed a bear. You ain't nothing. When you can't look forward, look back. When you can't look forward and not too sure what to do, look back and remember the goodness of God, the grace of God, the mercy of God, the kindness of God, the power of God, the ability of God. You got to remember. I remember the days when I didn't know a whole lot about building, and Dwayne McNabb died. I said, well, what are we going to do? We're going to keep building. Well, you don't have a building project manager. I'm going to learn. He was free. We ain't got no money. So I'm free. Let's do this. Called a friend. Hey, man, you architect? Why don't you give me some heads up here? I'll pay you a little consulting fee. Paul, you don't owe me nothing. Let's do this. I got you, man. I remember them days. I remember walking through that building, Family Life Center, and he goes, that structure is not right. Let me tell you how. Take pictures. Let me show you. I learned. Then I remembered. My dad was an architect. He did it as a side job. I remember being around my dad when he rebuilt our home. I started to remember God has prepared me for this. Not my first building. I actually been around building. I remembered. That's why you're going to finish this. Remember. When Satan gets you in so much fear, he tries to get you to forget. But you have to remember. That's why he says, you got to live by faith and not by sight. By faith. Faith is the ability of God. Sight that intimidates me is my ability against whatever I'm facing. Look at what he says in verse 14. He says, hey, don't forget, remember now, God is great. Here's the key thing. He is the one to fear, not fear itself. Fear him. Fear him. Many times you're so fear, you let the fear dominate. He said, no. You have to remember. Please remember. When you remember that God opened up the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army is dead. He is the one to fear. He is the one to look with intimidation, to walk away from his will, to walk away from whatever he's telling you to do. That's the one to be concerned about, not what Satan is doing. The one to fear is to be outside of his will, because the safest place to be is in God's will. But it doesn't look safe all the time. When you're on the water and the waves and the winds are blowing, when you're in a lion's den and the lions, they didn't say the lions slept, they're roaring and looking at you all night. When the fire is hot and your friends are in it. When you're in jail for 12 years as Joseph and God isn't saying nothing. That's the person to reverence. That's the person to respect. Because that keeps you purposeful. But when you let everything else make you afraid, you're here today, you're gone this way, you're moving this way tomorrow, you're in this direction, and not too sure what to do, we start to lean on our common sense, not on our faith. And our common sense drives us, because that's our comfort zone, not our faith. Faith is purposeful. It doesn't change. The books in the Bible stay the same. They're not adjusting, not going in this direction or that direction. So a faith keeps us purposeful, running the race that's set before us with our eyes fixed. But fear has us everywhere. Don't even encourage us to pray. Don't encourage us to read the Bible. Encourage us to find safe places. Don't run to safe places. God has a way when you choose to walk with him. He'll take you out of every safe place you got and make you have to trust him. If there's anything I learned about God, that's how he operates. I said, God, I want to walk with you. Okay, let's see how this works. Abraham, I'm taking you from a safe place, your father, Haran, where your relatives are. I'm going to make you a nomad walking around in the wilderness. How long am I going to do that, God? 25 years for one kid. But I told you I'm going to make you a nation. If you're going to walk with God, he makes you uncomfortable because it forces you to trust him. But if you want to walk with God and then somehow end up with a life that is very comfortable, you're going to go back to common sense. God ain't trying to make you comfortable. He's trying to make you rest in his power and reverence him. That's what he wants. So my life, and what I may call my life, is learning to die to me. But in our world, nah. We want God to bless our life. And God is saying, that only lasts today and is gone tomorrow. But my life is forever. So why not learn to walk with me? Because that's what you're going to be doing forever. I understand why we should be afraid. I get it. I was probably more afraid than you are with the kids here. I have prayed and begged God so many times. It was hard to watch them today. But what is God saying? Praying. Dr. Judy Times came up on my head. Let me call a doctor. And she manages disease control in the medical center. Black as she is, she's the vice chairman of the Baylor School of Medicine in the education department. And you put her right here. 20-something years before a virus. Remember God. What do you do, Judy? Keep mask on everybody, because that reduces the impact of the virus, and we know that for a fact now. Sylvia, nobody take off their mask. Let's go. Remember, he fits his body together fitly, faith. God, do I stand or move forward? In this case, move forward. But when you do it, stay focused and you'll accomplish more. And being in this setting, look at verse 50. Let me wrap up. This is the series. What do we do in these times? What is God saying in these times? I would never act like God going to shut up in these times. He ain't shutting up. Not in this pulpit. God is not afraid of what's happening. God has a plan for what is happening. It's not a shocker that this is taking place. It's not like it happened for the first time. It happened everywhere. They don't see this. This enemy is planning this situation behind their backs. They don't know what he's planning. When the enemy, and our enemies heard that it was known to us and that God had frustrated their plans, then all of us returned to the wall, each one to his work. You think Nehemiah says he ain't going to be keeping an eye on them? Now Nehemiah said, hey, here's a spear, here's a sword, here's a shield. And Nehemiah ain't dumb. Nehemiah said, protect the house that you live in with your kids. I ain't going to just make you an army. No, I want you to go where your house is, not too far from where your house is. You go straight to the wall where your house is, and you stand there and guard it. So when you finish building that wall, you're taking care of your family. Watch this carefully. Not until that plan was in place, leadership stood their post, led the people in the direction that God said, that God show up. You can't miss that. You can't miss that. From all this time, you could read from verse 1, from chapter 2, from chapter 1, middle, all the way to chapter 4. Find where God spoke. Nowhere. It's not until the people, following that leadership, said, we're going to keep building. God says, I'm going to frustrate everything that they're planning to do. I will make it so hard for them, they could never crystallize what they plan to do to take you out. Every time they put it together, it gets frustrating. Every time they organize their countries to come together, it'll never work. I'm going to make them so difficult for them to be able to hurt you that they could never come. These nations could never organize themselves. They had a big meeting, and that meeting does not crystallize a plan that works for anybody. So when they get in this huddle, no, man, we ain't going in that direction. We need to go over there. And we're going to try and do this. When they put themselves in different plans, they get frustrated, they don't go. Watch when it happened. It happened when Nehemiah stood and the people walked forward by faith. Then God spoke. Why? Last passage, I promise. Go to Hebrews 11:6. Hebrews 11:6. We want God to act. God says, do you trust me or not? Let me see if you trust me. Let me see if you believe in me. Let me see if all this stuff I can do, all things through Christ, I am more than a conqueror. Let's see if all of that is what you really believe. You just quote it to keep yourself encouraged. Do you really believe I'm God and I'm in control? Do you really believe that I'm able to do what I say I'm going to do? Well, we've had some scares here, but no spreads. Look at verse 6. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and there's a rewarder of those who seek him. Must believe. He's not taking no chump change here. They must believe in God. We must put ourselves in the direction that God wants us in, and not until we are there, God is not going to move. We want God to make a difference. God is saying, well, act like you believe it first. God, I need you to make a change in my life. Well, God, act like you're going to believe it's going to happen. God, I believe that you could do all things. Then get up in the morning and act like you're going to do all things. God, I believe you're more than a conqueror. Well, then go and face your situation expecting me to come through for you. God, I believe that you could move mountains. Well, start climbing at least one of them. God, I believe that you could protect my family without acting like you believe what I said. God says, if you believe in me, then step on the plane, buckle up, and trust me to land you. If you believe in me, then jump out the plane and pull the parachute and act like it's going to land. If you believe in me, then get on the boat, get out in the middle of the sea, and when the storm is there, trust that I could pilot you through. We don't talk about belief on the shore. Don't talk about belief at the airport. Don't talk about belief like you are not going to trust me. God says, if you believe in me, the only thing I reward is your faith. Look at James. This is why Satan will keep talking loud, keep a lot of noise, keep a whole lot of stress, keep a whole lot of anxiety in your life right here. If he creates doubt, it is an antidote to faith. And when an antidote to faith is doubt, God does nothing. He backs up. Watch this carefully. In verse 6 he says, but we ask in faith without doubting, for the one who doubts is like a surf of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For that man ought not to expect that he will receive anything from God, being a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. So, we're going to do this. Stand. Put the swords over here, spears over here. Watch your house. Take care of your family. Our God is on our side. God got us here. He's established us. We're going to rebuild this wall. They ain't taking our kids no more. They're not going to hurt our children anymore. They're not going to take our boys and our girls. They're not going to take our crop anymore. They're not going to use our land as some kind of some kind of spice trade. We're going to establish our nation to be strong again. And we're going to believe God to do it because he told Jeremiah, in 70 years you're going to go back and rebuild the land. We got a verse for that. We got Cyrus releasing us. We are here. Xerxes, let me come and bring materials. God's hand is at work. So we don't let them cause us to doubt. We're going to build this wall. Because if we doubt, we are unstable in all our ways. And God says, well, we studied it first. Prayer is a waste of your time. Why ask me? I'm not giving you nothing. You're wasting my time. Kneeling on your knees and praying and crying out to me when you don't want to walk by faith. See, folks, I get it. But we must stay purposeful. Because when we do, we demonstrate faith. We don't doubt. We don't go questioning where God is. We hold on and we walk in it. We trust it. Because God, Hebrews chapter 6 verse 18, can't even conceive a lie. Satan is the liar. So I challenge you today. No matter how life is, be purposeful. I pray that after this message, you will focus on the role God has called you to, because he's going to hold you accountable to that role. Live focused with God, because that's eternal. It's not temporal. Live focused with God so that your life becomes the fruit of the Spirit, because it's all about him first, not about us first. A person that chooses to lose their life will gain it. But a person who fights for their own life will lose it. So it's better to fight for the life that God has called us to, because then we gain the very things we are fighting for. I pray that this message would have refocused you, and now you plan to live intentional. Stay focused.
In such uncertain times, I'd like to draw your attention to a book by Pastor Cannings titled Give Fear a Knockout Punch. In this book, you'll find valuable biblical strategies to help you keep your focus and faith in God, and with the help of the Holy Spirit, learn to overcome fear and anxiety.